On behalf of the Chairman and SkillUp Committee, I welcome you all today. We would like to thank you all for taking time out of your schedules and joining us for the SkillUp workshop. SkillUp is a voluntary initiative under the AKEB with the mandate to roll out monthly interactive workshops focused on skills upgrade. These workshops may be relevant to professionals and small and medium-sized business owners presented by qualified subject matter experts. We are delighted to present today's workshop, Mastering Microsoft Excel Part 1. The agenda for today's workshop will be an introduction of the speaker, followed by their presentation. Once the presentation is over, there will be a question and answer session and finally a closing note. We urge every one of you to ask questions by typing them out in the chat section. You can do this by clicking on the chat icon on the taskbar. The speaker will be answering as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Once again, I would like to thank you for joining us today. It is a privilege to introduce today's speaker, Shahzeb Nayani. Shahzeb is a qualified chartered accountant and a certified financial modeling and valuation analyst. Having worked extensively across a variety of sectors, he has used MS Excel for over 10 years for simulations, modeling, and financial analytics. Shahzeb loves sharing his Excel knowledge to help others learn and advance in their careers. Once again, thank you, Shahzeb, for giving us your valuable time. I now hand over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone who's joined in the session today. So this is going to be a three-part Excel training session. And I'm just going to run you through what are we going to cover and how is this going to help you. So what we are going to cover today in Excel or across, I would rather say over the 3-week session, is that we are going to review all of the basics that are there in Microsoft Excel. And we are going to cover the versions of MS Excel of 2016, 2013, and 2010, more or less everything is the same across the board. And what we'll try to do is that we are going to follow industry leading practices so that you can learn what actually and practically is being used in the market today. And even if you're a beginner, you've had no experience of using Excel before, that would not be a problem because we're going to start from the very basics. So people who are absolute beginners can also have, they can get a very good start to reaching a certain level in Excel. As well as, while this is going to cater to a lot of basic stuff as well, there are a lot of users who might be intermediate users. So we're going to cover a lot of functions which they may or they may not have really used. But one of the most important things that we're going to cover in these 3-week sessions is that we are going to touch base on a lot of shortcuts so that you can speed up your Excel skills. And we know that Excel is perhaps one of the most in-demand Excels, and it perhaps is now and it will always be across a variety of industries. So before we jump right into the nitty-gritty of what are we going to cover, I'm just going to lay out what are we going to cover in these 3 sessions. So session 1, which is today, we are going to cover the basic layout and the navigation of Excel, so that if you're a basic user or if you're an absolute beginner, you get a feel of what Excel is. Next, as we go along, we're going to talk about doing some formatting and certain functions which Excel allows us to do, so that people who are basic users or people who are intermediate users can also learn how do they format their work, so that they can make their work neat, easy to follow, and ultimately all of these little bits and pieces is going to add up so that you become a better Excel professional. And topic C, which we are going to cover today, is going to be some basic formulas, a little bit of basics around formulas. So that is going to be our session 1, inshallah. Session 2 is going to go into a little bit of more advanced functions and formula. So, for example, if you want to take your basic skills up a notch and you have to start working with a larger data set, or, you want to delve into learning newer stuff in Excel. So we are going to do that as well. Finally, in section 3, this is by way of a lot of popular demand. A lot of people have asked this, that they want to have, they want to really learn how do they visualize data or put their data in a nice graphical format also. So we're going to cover that in session 3. Now, the most important bit that this entire 3-week series offers is that you get a certificate at the end of session 3. Now, the certificate that you're going to get, inshallah, will be after you pass a quiz. And let me tell you, the quiz is not going to be easy. So I would say that you pay the best of your attention throughout this entire course. The certificate will be awarded by a third party, which actually is a globally renowned professional trainer operating out of Canada. So before we jump right into Excel and start learning, Michelle, if I may ask you to run poll 9 so that we get a feel of how many people are actually sitting in front of the computer and have Excel opened up.
So participants should be able to see the poll now.
Okay, I think this serves pretty much the purpose. I have more than out of the participants, 88% who are sitting in front of the computer. Excellent. I think you guys are ready and very ready to jump right into Excel. Excellent. So I'm just going to stop this presentation and go into Excel. Now, before we jump into Excel, let me just show you something that, as a beginner, that when you start Excel, what really happens? What do you see when you start Excel, right? So when you start Excel, the first thing that you're always going to see will be the layout, right? Now, this layout is basically, when you open up Excel, you will see that, what you see is a workbook. A workbook is an entire Excel file, okay? And as we go along, when we jump right into the Excel file, you will see that what each of these things that we're going to talk about, what they actually look like. But this is just for a very high level intro for you before we jump into Excel. Second thing that you will see will be a worksheet. Now, within a workbook, you will have different sheets, which are called worksheets. And you can add as many worksheets as you want, and we are going to see how do you add and maneuver with these worksheets. You can add up to 250 worksheets depending on how much data are you planning to use. Third is a cell name, right? So what happens is that when you look into Excel, and again, when we jump into Excel, you will see what it looks like. Your cursor will always be around a certain cell box, and which is called a cell name, and a cell will always have a reference. We'll see how the cell reference works. And then one of the most important elements of Excel is the formula bar. Now, the formula bar is the place where all the magic happens, right? You put the formulas and Excel does calculations for you. So we're going to do a lot of detailed work around the formula bar as well. And finally, the ribbon, which is the most important tool within Excel. The ribbon is it's an assortment of all the tools that you have in Excel and that you can use to play with your data, format your data, apply formulas, and there are a lot of functionalities that are there in Excel. So with this, let's jump right in. Let's look at Excel. So what I would request you guys to do is that you would have received an email with the name of Mastering Excel. It would be an Excel file, and I would ask you guys to jump into the Excel file. Now, when you open this Excel file, if you haven't opened already, I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to open it up. I'm assuming that you would already have downloaded the Excel file that was given to you. Okay, excellent. So now once you open up the Excel file, what happens when you open up the Excel file? When you open up the Excel file, as we discussed, the whole window that you see here is a worksheet. And these little tabs here that you see at the very bottom, these are worksheets. Now you can see this little plus sign in here, and You can add as many worksheets as you like. You see, when I click this plus, you will see a new thing opened up here, which is sheet 2. And you can keep on adding whatever you like to do. Okay. And each sheet will have its own unique name. You can double click on this sheet and rename whatever you like. Let's call it report for today's working. Okay. But you can rename it whatever way you like. Double clicking and renaming is one way, but there is another alternative. You can do a right click and it's going to give you options. So, you can insert a new sheet from here as well. You can delete, you can rename, you can copy the sheets. Okay, and we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff as we go along, right? This is just a very, very beginner-friendly intro. Okay, fine. So also, one of the things that you will see at the very top is that you will see a file name. You will see a mastering Excel file name at the very bottom, whatever when you've opened the file name. That's the name of the file, and you can just change the name of the file like you would do with any other document. Now, one of the things that we looked at in the PDF as well was that this cursor. You can see that this cursor, what we called a cell name, this can be maneuvered using your mouse. You can just use your mouse and click wherever you like, or you could use your arrow keys on your keyboard, which you can help to move. Okay. Now, one of the things that is there is when you click on this particular cell where your cursor is, you will see that there is something which appears here, which is A1, which is a cell reference, right? Now, what does a cell reference really do? You can see that it refers to the location of the cell. So for example, in this case, you have A, which is the name of the column, and 1, which is the name of the row. As you move along this cell, you can see that the reference keeps on changing, right? Now I'm sitting on column G and row number 9, and you can play. Now, what's the importance of having the cell references? That when we are working on an Excel file and when you are going to apply formulas also as we go along, you will see that these cell references are a very important element. And not only that, when you're sharing your files with somebody or you're discussing your file with somebody, you can refer to these cell numbers to identify a certain place within the document. So that's about the cell number. Now, one of the important things that I would want to point out here is, before we jump into a little bit complexities of applying formulas and other stuff, let me just run you through what the ribbon does. So this entire box at the top, which you see, is the ribbon, right? Now, the ribbon will have a lot of different options. So you will have home, which will have a lot of formatting, copying, pasting options, some alignment options. You will have insert, where you can apply advanced functionalities, which is going to be pivot table, and we can, as we go along, we're going to cover all of this. You can insert pictures, shapes. So, and then that's pretty much about it. We're going to touch base on a lot of important elements within the ribbon, but for now, this is just a very high level overview. Then you have page layout, where you can set up your margins, your orientation, whether you want a portrait or a landscape. You can change your printing settings. You have formulas, where as we go along, we are going to learn how do you use this to apply formulas. You have your data tab, where you will see how are you going to use advanced functionalities to play with large amounts of data. So pretty much this gives you an idea what this ribbon does. Now, one of the things that I would want to throw in here for advanced users, generally what you can do is you can always use your mouse and go around and hover around and use all of these functionalities. One of the things that Excel helps you to do work faster is that there is an option where you can access these individual menus using a special key, which is the Alt key. So let me show you what, if for absolute beginners, you can see this is the Alt key that you're always going to use. So whenever you want to access a certain toolbar within this, you can press Alt and let's say H. When you press Alt in an Excel file, you see that Excel automatically starts giving you shortcuts and then page layout and all of that, right? So for example, if I want to go and do home key, I'm just going to press Alt and page together. It takes me right into home, and then we can go into these individual functionalities, right? Just similar to that, you can always use Alt, and then it's going to show you all of these shortcuts. If you are going to use your keyboard to work faster, you can always access these shortcuts. But as we go along, we're going to explore more of these shortcuts, but this is just a teaser, I would say. Okay, now let's come to a little bit of complicated stuff, which is how do you really apply formulas, right? So in order to do that, I'm just going to do a little bit of small exercise with you. Now, you can see that I have a lot of sheets added in here, right? Now, one of the ways that I can access these sheets is by going and clicking to each of them and see what is contained in these individual worksheets. But there's a faster way of accessing this, which is you press Control, and what you can see my key presses here. Whenever I'm referring to a shortcut, you'll see that the key presses will start appearing here. So make sure you look at them when I'm talking about shortcuts. Okay, so if you want to navigate throughout these worksheets, you can use the command Control Page Down. And for some reason, it's showing you next, but it is page down. And when you have to go up, you can press Control and page up. So that way, if you are working across a lot of worksheets at once, you can easily navigate between all of them. Remember, Excel has the capacity of adding 250 worksheets. And if you go and start finding these worksheets one by one, it's going to take you a lot of time. There is another easier way to access your worksheets is by clicking this small button here. Okay, I don't see that button here, but we're going to talk about it later. Don't worry.
Shazib,
Yes.
so, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of the participants are asking about how to handle things in Mac. I know you have provided that information in the PDFs we have shared, but can you touch on Mac as well briefly?
Sure. What I would rather suggest is that the basic functionalities in using a Mac is going to be the same. However, the shortcuts are different. What I'm going to do is, because I believe a large amount of the audience uses Windows computers. So I'm going to talk about most of the shortcuts from a Windows perspective. But yes, there is a PDF file which was shared with you guys earlier, which talks about shortcuts on a Mac as well. So you could refer back to that PDF and use the parallel functionalities and shortcuts mentioned for a Mac computer. Okay, so we just learned about this shortcut of navigating between worksheets. Now let's try to apply a simple formula. And how does Excel let you apply formulas, right? Now, what exactly is a formula? A formula is basically a sum of characters that you're going to put so that you are able to do a certain calculation. Okay. Now, how does Excel allow you to do formulas? There are two important ways how you can apply formulas. One is a formula will always start with an equals to sign. So if you don't put an equals to sign, none of your formula or none of your calculations will work in Excel. So this is the first important point. The other alternative is you can use the plus sign also to start your formula, and this is equally acceptable. The reason why a lot of people prefer using the plus sign is that it's a bigger key on your num keypad, and reaching the equal to sign is a little difficult, but they both equally serve the purpose. So this is one of the most basic elements of starting to put a formula within Excel. Now, how can you actually use the formulas or put in the formulas? So there are three ways of using formulas or putting in formulas, which is either you can put the formula where you need an answer. Okay, we are going to calculate this small example, and just I'm going to demonstrate how do you apply the formula. So you could apply, or you can insert the formula where your cursor is. For example, if I want to put in my answer, I want my answer here, so I'm going to start applying my formula from here. The other part is you can start applying the formula in the formula bar here as well. You can keep the cursor where you like your answer to be, and you can start applying the formula here, and you can start with an equals to sign from here. They will both equally serve the purpose. Now, there is another way which Excel tries to help you with applying formulas, is that you can use this small FX button in here, right? Now this FX button will actually let you see all the standard formulas that Excel already has. Okay, and you can always go back and refer to this as well and apply formulas for here. But as we go along, we are going to talk about these standard formulas as well. But generally, what I prefer to do is, in terms of, you know, when you are trying to work in a good speed, then going and clicking on all of this is just going to add to a little. It's just going to add a little time, but nonetheless, it's going to serve your purpose. So let's try to understand and let's try to do a simple formula, right? Now you can see here that this apparently looks like somebody's mark sheet. And what I want to do is I want to look at what was the total that they achieved and what were the marks that they obtained. And I want to do a total of this, right? So as we learned, I can put an equals to sign and I can go click here, then click plus, then click here, then use my keyboard and say plus, and then click here and then use my keyboard and do plus. Now this is going to be painful because it's going to take you ages to do summation of 10 lines. Imagine if you're working with 10,000 lines or 100 lines for that matter. It's going to take you ages, right? So we are not going to do this. Instead, Excel gives you a very good functionality, which is applying formulas. Now we are going to touch on a very basic formula just so that you get the concept. I'm going to use a sum or a summation formula. Now how a formula will work, I'm just going to explain the syntax to you. Now, you will always put in a keyword right after the equals to sign. So in this case, I'm putting a sum or a summation formula, right? Now, what happens is that whenever you have to apply a formula, you will put in the key that you have to put. For example, in this case, I'm putting sum. You will open a bracket and then you are going to use your mouse and you will just pick up, you will just drag all of this that I need the sum of all of this. And you will close your bracket and then it gives you your answer. Now this is one way of doing it. Let me repeat it for you. I'm just going to do sum, open the bracket, select the rows or drag the rows for which I need the formula to be applied and close the bracket. That gives me my answer. But there is a faster way of doing this as well. So imagine I don't want to use my mouse at all. What do? I can use my keyboard. I can use my arrow keys, right? Now, how do I select multiple lines using my arrow key is, and you can see the keystrokes that will start appearing right here, is you will press shift and you will start pressing control down, 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 down. Okay, let me do it again for you. You will press shift and press your arrow keys and it will automatically start selecting. And then you close the bracket. A little faster way, okay? Now, there's an even faster way of doing this is Excel does automatic summation for you so that you don't have to worry about pressing shift and dragging for infinite number of lines. You don't have to worry about where you need your answer. You are just going to press Alt and press the plus sign, the equals to sign, I'm sorry. You will press Alt and the equals to sign. You can see it right here. I've just pressed Alt and equals to, right? When you press Alt and equals to, what happens? You press Alt and equals to, Excel will automatically do a summation for you, automatically, in just one key press. Okay? This is a very fast, very, very fast way of doing auto sum. Imagine these were not 10 lines, these were 100 lines, and it would have taken you a long time to drag along, right? So this is automatic summation. Okay? Now I'm going to apply the same thing here. Okay, I can again do the same, go here and then press plus, 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 but it's going to take me a lot of time. So forget about it and either you use sum and use your keyboard to select and close the bracket, or alternatively, and a very fast way of doing this is you press Alt and you press equals to, and Excel does the job for you. Okay, now this is a very simple formula context that, you know, it just gives you some feeling that how do you really apply formulas. Okay, now let's try to calculate the percentage. It's going to be very easy. We'll just press equals to, and I want this divided by this. You can see the divide sign on your num keypad, and that's it. You will press enter. It will give you a percentage, right? For some reason, it may or may not come up as a percentage, you know. It might come like a number. So how do you fix it if it comes like a number? I want to look at a percentage. So right here on the home tab, you can see you can change the format to percentage. Now this is using a conventional way. If you want, you can do it faster by pressing Alt H, and then you can see this little P here, right? Let me repeat it for you. Why am I showing the shortcuts? For you know, a lot of people who are intermediate users would know all of these basics, but these extra shortcuts are going to help you work faster, right? Let me repeat the last thing again for you. What I did was that this divided by this gives you your percentage, but it may not be in the format. It might appear to be a strange number, right? So what you can do is you can either go and click here, or you can press Alt, then press H to take you to home, and then press P to automatically convert this into a percentage. So that's the very basics of how do you apply certain formulas. Now, before we go into more details and more depth, let's try to have a small quiz to see up to what extent you have followed. Vishal, can we have questions 1 and 2 later once we've finished with 1?
The poll should be on everyone's screen now.
So the question is very simple. You have seen that there are a lot of ribbon tabs that we observed, and where do you find charts, pictures, and shapes? Okay, excellent. I think I can see the results on my screen as well, and I can see that a lot of people have picked up the correct answer, which is insert. For those of you who have selected home and page layout, don't worry, it's okay. It's right there on top of your ribbon. You can revisit it at any point in time. Don't worry. Okay, so I'm assuming because you've followed it, I'm hoping that you're learning, and it will help as we go along. Okay, let's do question 2. Let's see what have we learned. Let's check question 2. Now this might be a tricky one, right? If I want to know the shortcut to navigate to the view section, what do I press? Do I press H? Do I press A? Okay. Interesting. I can see that a lot of people have picked up Alt H. Okay. Unfortunately, what I'll do is I think I'll repeat the shortcuts part for you again so that you get a better feel of it. Some people, around 32%, have selected correct, that when you have to look at the view tab, what button would you press, right? So let me show it again for you. When you're doing shortcuts, see, when I press Alt button, or Excel is automatically giving me these small alphabets. So H is for home, N is for insert, P is for page layout, M is for formulas, A is for data, R is for review, and for view, it is W. So those who got it correct, very good. Those who could not get it correct, it's absolutely okay. This is day 1 of our learning, and we're going to learn as we go along. Okay, excellent. So let's jump to the next topic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go into the report tab here. Okay, now you would have seen that I'm using control page up, the thing which I just taught you guys, that you can use control page up and page down to navigate between tabs. Okay, all right. So let us start by working on a small example. Now, what I've tried to do is I've developed an example to which everybody can relate. We are going to develop some sort of an example where you pick up your personal budget, and then we try to play along with some of the numbers in there. Okay. Now, what I would suggest is that as much as possible, try to follow along. I will try to go at a steady pace so that you guys can follow along. And if I go a little bit too fast, you can just raise your hand or drop in a text, drop in a chat message that I'm going a little bit faster so I can slow down. But I'm going to keep a steady pace. I'm not going to go too fast, neither I'm going to go too slow. Okay. So let's start and let's explore how do I use more functionalities within Excel. Okay. Now I'm going to start with a blank screen, and you should also have a blank screen like this. Okay. It's better if you follow along, but if you cannot, don't worry, because the entire session is going to be recorded and you can always refer back to the session and practice in your own time. So if you cannot catch up, don't worry, absolutely, it's absolutely fine. Okay, so let us start by doing some basic work. Okay, I'm just going to put in a currency for reference here in cell number A1, and I'm going to start with year 2014. Okay, now what I can do next is I can then say I am going to put it for the next couple of years. So I'm going to say 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and imagine the number of the time that is going to take for me to do all of this. Instead, what I am going to do is I'm going to use my equals to sign here, and I would say +1. Okay. Now, what I can do next is, and Excel gives you that functionality, is that you can go here and you can drag the formula to as many rows that you, or as many columns as you want. You can see in a little bit of a few presses of buttons, we are able to get from 2014 to 2020 without typing. Okay. Now there is a faster way of doing this. Okay. Let me delete everything from here. And let's do a faster way of doing this. Excel also gives you a very fast way of doing this, is that instead of using your mouse to drag all of this from here to here, imagine that you have to drag it for 10,000 columns, right? What are you going to do? You are not going to drag your mouse till the end of the world, right? What are you going to do? You're going to keep your cursor here where your last formula is, press Shift and move your arrow keys so that it keeps selecting. Okay, let's imagine I want to copy it up to here. What am I going to do to copy the formula? I'm going to press Control R. What Control R does is it copies your formula to the far right of your selection. So this is a faster way also of copying your formula to the right if you are working with a lot of columns. Okay, so this is fairly easy to do. Okay, now let's try to do a little bit of formatting here. Okay, I am also going to teach you how do you make your work neat. So let's try to do a little bit of format. Okay, now what we can do is imagine that I want to make a report and I want to make the, this looks very blank and this looks very plain and simple. I want to make it colorful. What do I do? What I can do is I can select all of this using Shift and my right arrow key. Then I can go here and change the color to what I like. Okay, now this doesn't seem too visible. So there is an option of changing the font color also. So you can go here and you can select white. Now it's a little bit visible. I want to make this bold also. So I'm just going to click bold here and it makes it bold. And I want everything to be centered. So you see there is this alignment options also. So I'm just going to say, let's make it centered. Now this looks nice. But what if I don't want to do all of these steps and I want to do it fast? Okay. Now let me undo all of this, what I did. And see, Control Z is the command to undo what you did last. So if you did anything by error, you can always press Control Z to revert back to where you were. Okay, now, how do I do all of the stuff that I did fast? Again, let's jump to Excel shortcuts, right? We know how do I play with the ribbon using shortcuts. I'll press Alt, and I know what do I need? I need to go here, but I need to access home first. So I'm going to press H, and see, it tells me that if I need to change the font background, I can again press H, and it opens the box for me, right? In a matter of a few seconds. When you start working with the keyboard, automatically your speed gets developed, right? For those of you who are beginners, don't worry about it. If you're using the mouse and you're still able to do all of this, you're fine. This is just an added feature of this workshop, that if you are already comfortable using the mouse and you want to speed up, then you can use these shortcuts. Okay, so I can again do this. Now I want to change the font color. What do? I'll press Alt, I press H, and for font color, you can see there is an FC written here. I'm going to press F and C together, right? And then I can change the color to what I like. I want to bold this also. So what I can do is I can click here, or alternatively, the shortcut to make it bold is Control and B together, and it makes it bold. What if I want to align it to the center? I could have gone and clicked here, but if you are working with a lot of data, you want to do it fast, you can always press Alt, H, and you see it says AC. So press A and C, and then it does it for you. Okay. So these are alternative ways of achieving the same thing. If you're using the mouse, you're comfortable with it, it's fine. You can still do and achieve the same output. All right. Now, what I want to do next is that I want to change the font size, right? Now, how do I change the font size? You can see right here that I can go and change the font size to what I like. Let's say I can change this to 14, right? I can do this, or alternatively, what I can do is Excel also has a very good shortcut, which is called Control and 1 together. So you press Control and 1 together, it opens up this dialog box for you, okay? Now we are going to, as we go along in the course, we're going to look at this dialog box several times, okay? Now, what do I do next once I'm in the dialog box, right? What do? I can go and select the font here, and I can change the font to what I like from here as well. And now you'll see there are other options here as well, strike through, superscript, subscript, and we can see as we go along, right? So I'm just going to press OK, and it gives me the same result, right? So you can do in whatever manner you like, whatever works for you, whatever is faster for you, okay? Now, I'm going to do something special, right? I'm going to do something special which not a lot of people might know about, will be, if I want to do it this way, assume that we are sitting in 2014 today and 15 today, okay? I'm sitting in 15 today. Let's say I'm sitting in 2015 today, okay? And I know that 2014 and 15 are historical years for me. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 are going to be future years for me. So how do I demonstrate that without doing anything fancy? Okay, what do? What I can do is I can press Shift, select the two together, okay, press Control 1 so that it takes me back to this box. I go to number and I go to custom. And what I do is I want to show a suffix next to the 2014 and 15 so that it represents that this is historical data, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say 0, which represents the number, which is 14 and 15. And what do I want next after this? I'm just going to put in a double apostrophe, and I can say this is historical. I can say H, and I will close the double apostrophe, and I can click OK. Now you see the magic. Your number still appears to be 2014, and the formula still appears to be the same what you had, but you can see this extra thing which comes here, which was not coming before. How these things help you is that if you're working on a report and you want to show that what each year represents, it can, you know, bring in a clear demarcation between the columns, right? If you give your work to somebody, they will have to really figure out what you're going to talk about, what the sheet is talking about. So doing these little tweaks can really help you, you know, bring a clear distinction to what your columns represent. Okay. Now we can do the same thing for 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. I'm going to press Shift, select all of this, press Control 1, takes me back here. I go to custom, and I do the same thing here. I'll just type in a 0, double apostrophe, and because the 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 in this case are going to be my future years, I'm just going to say F for future. Close the double apostrophe, and you see Excel shows you a sample here as well. 2016 F, right? So this is what Excel shows you. This is what your result is going to look like. And you press OK, and you get a H and F so that you get a clear demarcation what each year is representing without doing anything unusual with the formulas. Now, what I can see here is that this looks a little too crowded, right? what do I do next so that this looks a little neat? Okay, what I can do is I can go here and use my mouse to select all of this. Okay, and I do a right click and then go to column width and change the width to what I like. I can say I like 12 and I'm going to say okay. When you do this, your sheets are going to look neater and you can always change the width as you like. Okay, now this is one way of doing this. Let me repeat it for you again. How do you use your mouse to do it? You're just going to use your mouse to select all of this, right click, go to column width and change the width to what you like. Okay, now this is one way of doing it. The other way, and a faster, slightly faster way, would be that you select all of this without using your mouse. How do you do that? You are going to press Control and Space Bar. Control and Space Bar selects the whole row at once. Okay, now once you have done that, you're going to press Shift and press your right arrow key so that it does the same thing for you. Okay, now you can again do a right click and change the column width, but I like to do it a little differently. Okay, I'll press Alt, H for home, and then O for format. And you can see that there is this W, which is column width. Again, it gives me the same thing. For now, it looks a little longer process, but if you become habitual of using keyboard shortcuts, you can always go back and do your work a little faster. So that's about doing some basic formatting, right? Now, let us take one scenario. Let us take one scenario. You are working on a certain sheet and you want to share with it a working sheet with your boss, or, you know, for example, if you're looking at your sheet yourself. Now, imagine that you have a lot of data that you're looking through and you start scrolling down, Now, imagine what happens really is that as you scroll down, your headers vanish, right? So if you're, for example, if you're sitting somewhere here, you will not know which column are you really looking at, right? So how do I make sure that I'm able to see my columns and my rows wherever I go, whether I go right or whether I go left, is to use a very simple command called freeze panes. Okay, now what freeze panes does is it locks your header, or it locks the Excel file in such a manner so that whenever you scroll here and there, it does not change the header. You can still see the header so that you don't get lost. You really see where you are going. Okay, now simple way of doing this is you go to View tab, and you'll see there is a small thing here which is called freeze panes. You will click freeze panes, and now when you start scrolling down, you see I'm scrolling down, you can see the number of the rows are changing, but my header is still visible, which means that if I'm working through a large sheet, my headers don't get lost. Okay, so this is one small functionality that you have here. Okay, so I hope that this is fine, and let's try to do a little bit extra after this. Okay, so let's say that you want to start working on your personal budget using this Excel file. Now, how do you use Excel to your advantage so that it does all calculations for you? Okay, now let's try to do this way. In your Excel workbook that you have, you would see that there is a sheet called data. Okay, and you see that there are certain things which is personal budget, salary, essential expenses, savings, others, savings before entertainment, and all of this. Okay, so let's do this way, that let's copy the whole thing and bring it to our working sheet. Okay, so how do I do that? I can use my mouse and right click here, copy, and when you copy, you see this green thing starts coming around it. Yeah, just indicates that this is being copied. All right, now let's go to report, and let's say I want to copy it here. So I'm just going to go here and do paste. Okay. And I can click paste and it appears here. So this is an easy command. A lot of people already know about this. Copying and pasting saves a lot of time. Okay. Now, one of the things that you could also do is assume that I did not use my mouse and I just want to do using my keyboard. Very easy. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to press shift and scroll down, select the whole thing. The command for copy is Control and C together. And then you go back to your report and wherever you want to paste it, you will press Control and V. So this is a shortcut. It's a well-known shortcut. A lot of people know about it. Some people don't know about it. For those who don't know, this is something new for you. All right. So now we have copied all of this. Now you see that this looks a little ugly, right? Because this is just going out of my margin. So what do? I can just go select this. I can do as I did before. I can just say 12. Still doesn't look nice. I can do this again. Okay, I can say 20. Doesn't look nice. I cannot continue to do this trial and error every time. So what I can do is I can click here and it automatically resizes my columns. Okay, one small extra bit. Okay, now what I want to do now is I want to copy the other information from the other sheet so that I can start working for my on the formulas and on some formatting, right? So what do I do? What I do now is I go back to my data sheet by using my control page up, page down, the shortcut that now you already know, and I select all of this. I press Control C, which is the copy command. I go back to my report and I press Control V so that it copies everything here. Okay, fairly simple. Now the important thing that you will learn about formulas here is that all of these numbers that appear to be here, they don't, all of this appears to be punched in numbers. Now, how do I really know that all of these numbers, the calculations are correct or not correct? I don't know, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete everything here where apparently there should have been a calculation. Okay, so let's delete this. Let's delete this. Let's delete this. And let's delete this as well. Okay. Now, what do I want to do? I want to do a simple arithmetic calculation. I'm going to put an equals to sign here. And I want to see what is my saving after deducting my essential expense. Okay. So this minus this, and you press enter. Now, important thing to know again about formulas here is that whenever you are looking at formula, you can look at the formula here and it, always the formula will refer to a certain cell from which the numbers are deriving, the numbers are flowing. Okay. Now let's do it again. This is going to be this minus this, and this is going to be this minus this, and this is going to be this minus this. Fairly simple, right? Now, what I want to do is that all of this looks very ugly to me. What I want to do now is I want to change their formatting so that they look nice. Okay. So what do? I select all of this and I press Control 1. It takes me back to my format cells dialog box. I go to number here and I pick up that, okay, I only want to see one decimal place. I want to show 1,000 separators so that commas will start appearing. And I want all my minus numbers or my negative numbers to have a bracket around them, let's say. Okay, and I'm just going to press OK. Now, see how neat this looks, right? It doesn't look like there's just number crunched in and, it looks a bit neater now, right? Now, one of the things that you can do is that you can again do the same process for this by again going to Control 1 and doing the same process again and again. Oh, no, this is going to take a lot of time. So what do I do instead? Excel allows you to do a special kind of paste. Okay. So what you can do is, we just saw that you can actually copy numbers from one place to another. Excel allows you to copy the formatting also from one place to another. Okay. Let's try to do a simple one. I want all of the numbers to look just like this nice looking number here without going into a lot of, headache of going into the format cells dialog box. So I will go to home, and you see this little small icon here. This is called paste or format painter. What happens is that first you will copy this by pressing Ctrl C. And what I want to do is I want to paste the format here. Okay. So what do I do is, let me repeat it again. I go here and I click on this button. You see again the green thing coming around it. But this time what it's going to do is it's not going to copy the number. It is going to copy the formatting. I'm just going to drag this, and you see how all of the numbers start looking just the same way that these are. Okay. Let me do it again for you. It's very simple. When you have to paste the formatting of one number just so that everything looks consistent, we'll go here, click on this button, and then drag here, and it changes everything so that everything looks nice and consistent. Okay, now we know that we applied some formulas here, right? We did some basic arithmetic calculations here. What do I do now? I can again start doing the same thing here and again do the same thing here. Let's not do that. Let's copy your formula to the right. We saw that when we were doing columns D, E, F above. Okay, so let's press Ctrl and R to copy my formula to the right. And let's do it again. And again. And again. So imagine what happens is that once you've input or inserted a formula, you don't need to bother about doing the same thing again and again and again for a lot of columns that you're going to work with. Okay. Now, I'm just going to throw in a little bit of spotlight from industry practice. What happens is that, if you're giving this sheet to somebody and they're looking at this, this sheet, they will not really know what exactly is a punched in number and what exactly is a formula. So how do you distinguish between the two, right? There's a very simple way of doing this. And what I like to do is I color my punch numbers in different color and I leave my formulas blank or black color. Okay. So what I do is I can just pick up my punch numbers and I can just pick up my font color and change this to blue because I like keeping it blue. So let's keep it this light blue. Okay. Now I can go and do this again and again for all of these punch numbers. Okay. But I really don't need to do that, right? Excel has a very nice feature called repeat last action. What it does is it repeats the whole thing for you again and again, what you did last, till the time you stop doing it or you do something different. So for example, the last thing that I did was I went and I just colored this. Okay. I want to do the same thing in my other punch numbers. What do? There's this key on your keyboard, which is the F4 key. It doesn't appear here for some reason, but it will be your top row of just above your number line. Okay. So once you press the F4 key, it automatically does the last action for you. So here I'm going to press F4. See that the color changes automatically, right? Again, F4, 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 and F4. So it does everything automatically for you, right? You don't need to bother about doing stuff again and again, right? This is a bit faster. Okay. Now, one of the additional features that Excel also has is that you've applied a lot of formulas here, right? You've seen that all of these blacks now represent the formulas that you've applied. And now, see, this looks a bit neat, right? You know what is your pasted number and what is a formula. You can easily distinguish between the two, right? Okay. Now, how do I keep on checking and continuously checking the formula, right? Now, there is a very easy way of doing it is to press F2 on your keyboard. Okay, when you press F2, it opens up that each formula is coming from what cell. So you can always go back to your sheet and recheck all of the numbers. Okay, so whenever you feel like checking your work or somebody else's work, you can just press F2. It opens up where the formula is coming from. Okay, I'm just pressing F2 on each of the formula cells and it is showing me.
Shahzeeb,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you again.
Yes.
Can you do me a favor and can you zoom in a little bit more? And can you go
I cannot hear you. Your voice is very low. What do you want me to do? You want me to zoom in a little bit?
Zoom in a little bit, and if you can go slightly slower.
Okay, okay,
Thank you.
okay. All right. So I hope this is a bit more visible for you. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to work more on formulas, right? So what do? Let's try to do this way, that I want to analyze, or I would rather say I have some historical number here. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want Excel to do the future numbers for me. And I'm just going to apply some formula so that Excel does future numbers for me. Okay. Now, how is Excel going to do some future numbers for me is if I give some calculation basis to Excel. Okay. So let's say I'm going to put assumptions in here, and I'm going to press Control P to bold it. Okay. So that it looks nicer. And I'm going to copy the things for which I need assumptions. Okay. So I need my assumptions to work for salaries, essential expenses. Okay. And I'm copying all of these, right? You can go and copy one by one, or you can press Control and use your mouse to select all of them in one go. Okay. Let me repeat it again. You can copy paste one by one, or alternatively, you can keep pressing the Control key and select using your mouse what you want to copy. After you have selected all of this, press Control C and just scroll down, press Control V, and it copies everything for you. Okay, simple. Now, I want to give Excel some basis so that it calculates the future numbers for me. Okay, now what do I give Excel? I want to see how my salary has increased from last year. So what do? I'm just going to put in a small formula here so that it gives me what percentage my salary increased from last year. So I'm just going to say equals to, and I'm just going to go up to salary, divide this by last year, okay, and do a -1. This is a standard mathematical formula, okay, and I can change this to percentage. Let me do it again. Let me delete this and do it again for you. If you want to see how the number has changed, you will go to the newer number, divide it by last number, and do a -1. It gives you the rate of increase or the percentage this has increased. Okay. Now, this gives us a very simple calculation. Essential expenses, what is happening here is that you can see that as my salary is going up, my essential expenses are also kind of going up. Okay, I'm assuming that maybe in the future this goes with the same speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say that let's try to calculate essential expenses as a percentage of my salary. Okay, so let's do that. Essential expenses divided by salary gives me 0.45. But I don't want this to be 0.45. I want this to be looking like a percentage. So I can just click here, it becomes a percentage. Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to keep other expenses the same. Okay. So I'm just going to press equals to, and I'm not going to calculate any percentage. Let's keep the same number. Okay. Entertainment, let's keep the same number for simplicity. Okay. And tax will always be a percentage. So let's say this is tax, and then you divide this by your savings before tax. Okay, it gives you a number, but I want a percentage. I'm just going to go here and click. And I've paid 27% tax on my take-home pay, not on the take-home pay, whatever I'm saving afterwards. Okay, now let's try and use all of the work that you have done here so that we can use it to populate the numbers up above, right? Let's do it simple. So assume that in the future, in the past, my salary has increased by 10%. Let's hope that my salary keeps on increasing by the same percentage. So let's type 10%. okay? And press Control R and copy this to the right, okay? So you can see everything got copied here, okay? Then you have 45%. Let's assume that it is still going to be 45%. And you do again the same thing and Control R, copy everything to the right, okay? Let's assume my expenses were 18,000. Let's assume my expenses are going to be 20,000 for the next so many years. And then you press Control R, it does the same thing for you. Let's assume my entertainment is also going to be the same and Control R, and it copies this for you, okay? Assume my taxes is also going to be same. So let's say this is it, and I am going to press Control R. So now we have given some sort of basis or some sort of logic for Excel to calculate, okay? Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use some formulas to automatically do the numbers for the next four years, right? 5 years. So let's try and calculate. I know that my salary is going to increase by 10%. So what I'm going to do is, let's try to calculate all of these numbers, okay? So if I want to show my salary is going to increase by 10% in 2016, I'm going to pick up this, which is my last year's salary, multiply this by 1 plus the percentage by which my salary is going to increase, right? So it's going to say this increased by 10%, right? From 165, it went to 181. We can do the same for essential expenses. We know that essential expenses are 45% of my salary, which we calculated here. So let's do the same thing, okay? I am going to pick up 45% from here, multiply this by my salary, and it calculates automatically for me, okay? Let's try to do other expenses. We are not going to do any calculation because we are just saying that my expenses are going to sit at 20,000. Let's link it to 20,000 that way, okay? Entertainment, press equals to, and you take it down and it link it to 1,000, okay? Now, before we do anything else, let's try to copy the formulas here. We know that we already calculated, we don't need to punch in the formulas again. Pressing Shift and doing this, pressing your right arrow key, press Control R, copies the formula to the right. Let's do this again. And let's do this again. Okay, now I am at a certain number here, which is my number before tax. And now I want to calculate my tax. Very simple. I know that my tax percentage is 27%. So I'm going to use 27% multiplied by this. And it gives me my tax number. Okay. And then I want to see what was my net saving after tax. I'm just going to do the same, press Shift and your right arrow key, Control R, copies the formula to the right. Now we have done our calculation of 2016 and we've put in all the formulas, right? Now, why the putting in the formulas are important? Because if you change anything anywhere, your formulas will automatically update. So just let me give you an example. If this number was not 10%, this number was 5%. So you see all of this changed automatically without you lifting another finger, right? Okay, let's make this 15%. I'm being very optimistic. My salary is going to grow by 15%. See, everything else is changing, right? Which shows that there is, Excel is really a powerful tool. You change something, it automatically updates everything for you. Okay, let's go back to 10% for now. Now you will see that these two look very nice, but this looks very ugly. Okay, what I want to do is I want to make these look similar to this. Okay, what I'm going to do is let's pick up any black. Now we know all of these are formulas and nothing is a fixed number. Let's make them all black and let's make them same as this 90,000. Okay, so let's copy the format and drag it here. See, it becomes nice. Okay, let's do it again. I went here, copy the formatting and dragged it here. and it takes me, it just, makes it nicer. Now I can do the same thing for 2017, 18, 19, 20. It's going to take me a lot of time, right? Because I'll have to apply a formula to each column. Do I really need to do it? No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and pressing shift, I'm going to select all of this and go to the right, and I press Control R, and see, everything gets done for you automatically. You don't need to do anything extra. Okay.
Shazib,
right. Yes.
Just to remind you, we will run out of time, so maybe we want to wrap up the content in the next 5 minutes, so we have some time.
We are just on the last bits, and we're just going to do some little bit of formatting, and we're going to do the advanced formulas and other stuff in the next session. Perfect. So I hardly need another 5 or 7 minutes.
Perfect. Hopefully this Thank you, Shazib.
Okay. Now, okay. So now you saw the power of Excel, right? That it does automatically for you, right? So if you have been following this correctly, or even if you were not able to follow it fully, you can see that by playing around with some formatting and doing some basic formulas, we're not even in the advanced portion now. This is all basic stuff. You can see that we started with this very plain looking vanilla sheet, and now we're looking at a very nice looking report, right? So let's do a little bit of extra cleanup formatting, and then we are done. Okay. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to make important elements a little bit bold, right? What do? I want to make my savings before other expense bold. I can go and click here and make it bold, or I can go and press Control and B, or I can just do F4, which is repeat last action, right? Either of the options are open to you. So whatever you like. Okay, let's press Control B to make it bold, and let's press Control B to make it bold. Now this looks neat. Okay, now final thing is just to apply a little bit of borders so that it looks nice. Okay, how do you apply borders so that your work looks nice? Is you see that there is this little border icon here in your formatting tab. Okay, so what you do is, let's say I want to apply border to all of these cells, right? So what do? I press Shift, go right, select all of this, and go here and apply the top border to this. Now you see that there is a nice looking border just before the total number. Okay, you can do this again here by simply doing the whole step again. Okay, or you can use F4, which we discussed, that it repeats your last action. So I'm just going to press F4, and it's going to do the same thing for me. Okay, let's do it again. Press F4, and it does the same thing for you again. Okay, now this completes our basic stuff for today. Okay, one last bit of cleanup, one last bit of making your work look nice is that you can remove the grid lines. Now, what exactly is a grid line? A grid line is these, these box-like things that you see here. These are grid lines. What you can do is you can go to View and disable your grid lines by clicking on this check, and see it looks nicer. So you don't have those lines coming in between. Okay, if I re-enable this, we'll start again seeing these lines in between. And then if I remove it, this is done. So I think we've covered quite a lot today. What we can do next is that, as and when we go to the next session, we're going to start looking at some advanced formulas, some newer stuff, so that you get to learn more and more of the advanced stuff. I hope that today, whatever we have covered, you've tried to follow along, but even if you've not tried to follow along, don't worry about it. It will be recorded and it will be shared with you. So it's absolutely okay. Vishal, over to you.
Thank you, Shazib. Thank you for such an informative session. We are getting messages through chat. People are really appreciating the content that was covered, as well as
Michelle, sorry, you need to be a little louder. I think we can't really hear you.
Can you hear me
Slightly better, but not too much.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, better for me.
Okay. Yeah, something is wrong with my laptop today. I apologize. Just want to thank you, Shazay, for taking the time to go through the content today. We're getting a lot of good feedback from the participants. The way you've gone through it, the content, we really appreciate it. I have received some questions that if you can just touch over those areas very quickly.
Yes, sure.
One question was about freezing panes. You are freezing the top row and the top, the furthest left column. Can you show how users can freeze panes in between the
Vishal, sorry, your voice is gone again, unfortunately.
Hello?
Yes, now I can hear you again.
Shazib, maybe you can go over the Q&A by going through the questions in the chat.
Yes, let me. Okay, let me see. How do I go to the? Okay, I can see the chat. I can see the chat now. Okay. But I'm not sure which questions to pick. There are a lot of questions.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now very well. I can hear you. Just let me know what was the question, and I can just run it past. Run it through.
I apologize. Do you want to share your screen again? Since you
Yes. Sure. I will just share my screen so that you can look at.
Okay, so the first question we received was about freezing panes, about how we can freeze pane in between the worksheet as opposed to the top row or the furthest left column.
Sure.
You can demonstrate that?
Sure, absolutely. So what we did was, just for simplicity, we just froze the top pane. But what we can do is that when you freeze the top pane, what happens is that, let me show you, when you freeze the top pane, I've just frozen the top pane. When you go down,
can't see your screen, Shazib.
Oh, you cannot. Wait. I think, let me just re-enable it. I think something went wrong. All right. I think now you should see my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Excellent. Now you see that when I do, let me just unfreeze panes for a bit, right? So when I keep my cursor here and I freeze panes, what happens is that Excel, what it does is that it picks up your cursor and it freezes the panes to your left and to your top, right? So instead of putting your cursor on the top left, what you can do is, if I want to keep my cursor here, let's say, and I freeze panes here, okay, what happens is that Excel will always freeze your top row and your left side. So once I do that, you can scroll down and you can scroll to the right as well, and you can still see your labels, right? So important thing to note here is that whenever you're freezing panes, always freeze it in a position where you want, if you want to freeze your left and you want to freeze your left and your top, you keep your cursor in such a place that you can easily freeze your top and your left. Okay.
Okay.
I hope I was able to answer this.
Yes, thank you, Shazib. Another quick question. Can you re-show the historical formatting again?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So let me just do it quickly. Let's say you have a number 2020, okay? and you want to put a special prefix next to it, what you can do is you can right click this and go to format, okay? Or an easier way is just pressing Control and 1 together. Does the same thing for you. You will then go to custom, and let's say I want to have a prefix at the end, right? So see the sample. Okay, I'm just going to denote a 0, which represents a number or a numerical digit, and whatever prefix I want to have, I need to put it in double apostrophe because it will always be a text. So let's say I want to put a full number, full prefix next to it, history. Okay, and I will close the double apostrophe, and you can see the sample, right? And then you press OK, and you see the prefix automatically starts appearing as part of special format. Okay, you can do in whatever manner you like. It just helps you to bring in a clear demarcation on your rows in your if you're working with multiple rows and there are different types of data that you want to point out, then you can use this functionality.
Thank you, Shahzeb. Just going back to freezing panes, can you show how to freeze a full column? So for instance, if you want to freeze column G.
If I want to freeze column G.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I've not really frozen a single column. You want me to use a split cell or?
No, let me show you. Do you mind if I show that?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, I can't do it. So just select column G.
Yeah.
This annotation, I apologize for this annotation. I'm not sure how to turn it off. And just go to freeze and hit freeze panes.
Yep. Freeze.
Just the top one.
Freeze panes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay. I got it. What you were trying to do. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
My bad. Okay.
I think this is it for today's session. I want to remind all the participants that our next session will be next Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Dubai time. If anybody has any questions, the topics that we will be covering were introduced by Shahzeb earlier on in the webinar. If there are any specific areas that you would like us to cover, please send us an email. We will be sharing the file that will be used for the session ahead of time. The registration link for the next week's session will be separate, so you will have to register again. We will also be sending a short feedback survey, and we would really appreciate if you can take the time to fill that out so we can improve our future sessions. Thank you so much. And I would again like everybody, and especially Shahzeb, for taking the time to attend this session. Thank you.
Thank you everyone.